Most people think the gecko on the wall is just waiting for mosquitoes. Biologists now believe it's doing something more interesting than that. It's tracking the rhythms of your home. Stick around, by the end of this, you'll probably look at the thing on your wall a little differently. The animal is the common house gecko, Hemodactylus frenitus. If you've lived anywhere in Southeast Asia, you already know it. Small, pale, semi-transparent, always near the light, the one that makes that sharp clicking sound at night. In Vietnamese, it's called Thac Song, roughly, the stone follower, a name that carries a quiet observation. This animal has lived alongside us for so long that its biology is now shaped by ours. It didn't end up in your home by accident. Its ancestors chose homes like yours generations ago. And the reasons start to make sense once you see what it can actually do. 3 things are worth knowing about how this animal is built. First, the feet. A house gecko can walk across a glass ceiling, upside down, without slipping. The mechanism is well documented at this point. Each toe is covered in millions of microscopic hairs called setae, and each hair splits into hundreds of even smaller tips. They don't use glue. They don't use suction. They rely on van der Waals forces, weak molecular attractions that only operate at extremely small scales. The gecko isn't sticking to your ceiling the way tape sticks to a wall. It's exploiting a layer of physics most animals never come into contact with. Then there are the eyes. This animal sees your room differently than you do. In dim conditions, a house gecko's pupils open until they almost take over the entire eye. Research on related nocturnal geckos suggests their low light sensitivity is hundreds of times higher than ours, and that they likely retain color vision at light levels where humans see only gray. Which means, when your room is dark and you assume the gecko is resting, it is in fact seeing the room in detail. Every shadow, every movement, and the tail. If something grabs a gecko by the tail comes off. It keeps moving for several minutes, long enough to distract a predator while the gecko escapes. Within weeks, a new tail grows in. It's not a perfect replacement. The regrown tail is usually shorter, supported by cartilage rather than bone, but the regeneration itself is something human medicine is still trying to understand. So this isn't a simple animal. It's one of the more biomechanically interesting vertebrates on the planet, and it has decided to live in your bedroom, which brings us back to the question from the start. Why does it watch you? Here I want to be careful with the science, because the honest answer is more interesting than a dramatic one. There isn't a single famous study that cracked gecko behavior in human homes. What we have instead is a body of observation from herpetologists, urban ecologists, pest control researchers, people studying how wildlife adapts to cities, and the observations point in a consistent direction. House geckos in human dwellings don't appear to forage randomly. Their positioning tends to track the parts of a home that are most active at night. They're more often found near the lights people actually use, in the rooms people actually occupy, at the times those rooms are in use. The likely explanation is straightforward. Lights attract insects. Human routine attracts more lights, more food smells, more open doors. The gecko has learned over generations, and probably also within its own lifetime, that human activity is a reliable predictor of where prey will appear. You don't see the gecko hunting, because the hunting is mostly waiting. It picks a position where light and insect traffic intersect, and it stays there until a moth or a mosquito makes the wrong move. So when it seems to be watching you, it isn't watching you the way a cat does. It's reading your routine the way a fisherman reads a tide, because your routine creates the conditions it needs to eat. For a lizard the size of your finger, that's still a quietly remarkable thing. Vietnam is one of the densest habitats for house geckos in the world. The reason goes back centuries. Traditional Vietnamese architecture, open eaves, tile roofs, interior courtyards, evenings spent under oil lamps and lanterns, happened to create excellent gecko habitat long before electricity existed. Sheltered, full of insects, and full of humans who mostly left them alone. In Vietnamese folk tradition, the gecko's call, that sharp, repetitive bark, was taken as a sign of a healthy household. There's some practical sense in that belief. A single house gecko eats thousands of insects a year: mosquitoes, cockroaches, moths, flying ants. In a region where dengue and malaria have historically been real concerns, a house full of geckos meant a house with fewer mosquito bites, so a small feedback loop developed over a long time. Homes that tolerated geckos had fewer pests. Fewer pests meant less illness, and the geckos, free from persecution, became more comfortable around people than their wild cousins ever could be. The gecko on your wall tonight isn't a wild animal that wandered in. It's the product of a very long, very quiet partnership. So what do you actually do with any of this? A few small things. Next time you see a gecko on the wall, notice where it's positioned. It picked that spot for a reason. That's the corner where light and insect traffic line up best in your room. It has, in its own quiet way, done the math. If you'd like more geckos around, in a tropical climate, you probably should keep a low light on near a window or doorway in the evening. Insects gather, geckos follow. Within a few weeks, you'll have a small, silent pest control team working your walls for free. If a gecko ends up somewhere inconvenient, don't try to grab it. They're fragile, and they'll drop their tails out of stress. Just turn the nearby light off and turn another light on somewhere more suitable. It'll relocate on its own. The house gecko isn't the biggest animal in your home. Not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most obvious. What it's good at is paying attention. It's been paying attention to the rhythms of human houses for a very long time, probably longer than your family has lived in yours. And tonight, somewhere high on your wall, a small animal is sitting beside the light, quietly reading the patterns of your home, the same way it has for generations. The next time you see one, look back. If you found this interesting, Vietnam has hundreds of species with stories like this one. Overlooked, strange, quietly beautiful. We'll keep going through them. Subscribe if you'd like the next one when it lands. And leave a comment. Do you have a house gecko story? Now that you know what it's probably doing up there, has it changed how you see it? See you in the next one.